Arkadaşlar merhaba, kanalıma hoş geldiniz. Mob Interview serimize devam ediyoruz. Sizlerden ricam sorular sorulduğu zaman videoyu durdurun ve kendiniz cevap vermeye çalışın. Emin olun sizler için çok faydalı olacağını düşünüyorum. Kanala abone olmayı, bildirimleri açmayı unutmayın. Mob Interview'e geçiyoruz.
Thank you for your coming to the interview. How are you doing,
Thank
Nergis?
you very much. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm well, pretty good. Could you introduce yourself and explain why you decided to pursue a career into IT field?
Sure, yeah. First of all, before I start introducing myself, I would like to thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for your time today. My name is Nergis Wali, and I am from Turkey. I'm a mother of two sons, and I am a former teacher with 8 years of experience in the education field. Currently, I'm looking for a role as a QA automation engineer. So how did all this journey started? Actually, I was always considering making a transition into IT industry, but it got serious once I got my kids. So once they were born, I was always thinking about, understanding more of technology because they were born in this era. They're born in technology era. They're going to be exposed to a lot of technological stuff like mobile phones, computers, games and iPads. So I seriously started thinking about making a transition into IT industry. And I had a friend who's a very successful QA automation engineer living in the USA currently. She recommended me to start from being a QA automation engineer. So she recommended me a boot camp. And I took the opportunity. I took the boot camp, although I did not have any IT background. I became very successful in this boot camp. And after that, I took some projects, and the projects were mainly about Selenium WebDriver as an automation tool. And I used Java as my primary programming language. We use different tools. First of all, we created a Cucumber framework in one of our projects. I'm going to talk about one of our projects. We created a Cucumber framework using a Maven as build management tool and Git and GitHub as our version control tool. We implemented the CI/CD process using Jenkins. And then we also performed backend testing using Postman, MySQL for manual testing, JDBC library, and Rest Assured library using for automation testing, I'm sorry. So yeah, I have a strong understanding of SDLC and SDLC processes. I've performed both manual and automation testing. I've performed different types of testing so far, such as functional, like I said, backend, and smoke regression. And I also worked in an agile Scrum environment. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all about me. If you have any further questions, I'll be glad to answer.
That's impressive. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's move on to technical question, if it's inconvenient for you.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
Could you explain what overloading is in programming?
Of course. So I'm going to give an example from Java whenever I talk, because that's the main programming language I know. Overloading in Java is a feature that allows a class to have more than one method with the same name, but using different parameters. So if I can give an example, that's the easiest example that all the instructors give. So let's say we have a class and there's an add method. So we use the add method with different parameters. In the first one, we have public static add, and then we have, let's say, integer A and integer B. In the second method, within the same class, we have another add method. This time we can use, let's say, double A and B. And in the third method with the same name, add, we can have, let's say, integer A, integer B, and integer C. So it's always the same name of the method, but the parameters may change based on the numbers of the parameters and the data type of the parameters. This is called method overloading.
That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What are the differences between an abstract and an interface?
Okay, so interfaces and abstract classes, they are used to achieve abstraction in Java. And abstraction is one of the concepts in OOPS, in object-oriented programming, right? So with interfaces, we can achieve 100% of abstraction Whereas with abstract classes, we cannot achieve 100% of abstraction. It's always going to be between 0 or 100. In interfaces, interfaces support multiple inheritance, whereas abstract classes, they don't support multiple inheritance, because classes in Java, in general, they do not support multiple inheritance. In interfaces, we cannot have implemented methods. All the methods are abstract. The classes who inherited from this interface can implement those methods, whereas in abstract classes, we can have both implemented methods or abstract methods. These are the main differences, I think. Yeah.
Yes, we can go on Java. Difference between set, list, map, etc.
Yeah, sets, lists, and maps. First of all, sets and lists. These two interfaces, they extend from a collections interface. So they are a part of collections framework. Whereas map is not a part of collections framework, but they have similarities. So when we talk about the differences between these three, I can say lists allow duplicate elements. So when we store data, a value in lists, we can have duplicate elements, same value 2, 3, 4 times. Whereas in sets and maps, we cannot have duplicate elements. They are not allowed in these two interfaces. Also, in lists, the insertion order is preserved, which means whatever value we write first, second, third will stay the same. Whereas in sets and maps, there's no insertion order. Another difference between these three is in lists, we can have more than one null value, whereas in sets and maps, we cannot have more than one null value because duplication is not allowed. So we have only one null value. Another major difference between these three is with lists and sets, we can store only one data, one value, whereas in maps, we can store key and value pairs. So two values, actually, one is key, one is value, but two data will be entered for maps.
These
are the differences.
It's enough. Yeah. And difference between constructor and method?
Constructors and methods. Okay, so constructors, they're a block of code which initializes a newly created object. Whereas methods, they are a set of sentences, a set of codes which returns a value when it is executed. So what's the difference between these two? Constructors must have the same name as the class name, whereas methods can have any name. Constructors don't have any return type, whereas methods must have a return type, whether it's void, whether it's string, integer, but they must have a return type. Another difference between these two is the Java compiler, it gives us a constructor and it's a default constructor without rewriting it. Implicitly, it provides us with a default constructor if we don't provide it. Whereas methods are not provided by Java compiler, we need to write it explicitly. Yeah, these are the main differences.
Yes, I see. And what are transactions in SQL? In what situation are they used?
Oh, yeah, transactions in SQL. So transactions are a way to group database operations, multiple database operations, all together as one operation. And it ensures that once the transaction happens, all these operations, if they are successfully completed, they are saved in the database. They are committed. If one of the operations doesn't work, there's a problem, all the operations are taken back, rolled back. So it's like they didn't happen at all. And what situations they are used? There are some situations that are used, for example, money transfer, database updating the database, online purchases, and multi-user access. If there's a system with multi-user access, also transactions are used. And I want to give a very short example with money transfer. So whenever we transfer money, right, we log into our account and then we check our balance. And then these are all operations, different operations. We check our balance. We go to the page where we make a transfer. And then we write the information for the account that we're going to transfer the money. And then we choose the amount. All these are different operations. So when we click on send and all the operations are successfully completed, it is saved in the database. It means transaction is done. It's committed. If there is any problem within these operations, anything is wrong, all the operations are taken out. It's like nothing happened at all. So why do we use it? Especially we use it in crucial operations like money transfer. These are very crucial operations, and reliability is very important. That's why transactions are used in these situations.
Okay, Nergis. How was the test plan prepared?
Well, test plan is one of the very, very important thing for testers, of course. So test managers, test leads, testers, they come together to plan this test plan. And it's a very detailed document, which includes the test strategy, test objectives, like the test environment, the estimation of the timing. Everything is included in this document. So what do these people, this testing team do? First of all, they analyze the product, the software that they're going to test, right? They analyze the product. And then they come up with a strategy. What should we use while testing this product? Should we use the functional testing strategy? Should we use the backend testing strategy? Lots of strategies. They come up with the correct one. And then they define the test objectives. They define the test criteria, right? If it meets the requirements that the stakeholders want. And then they will do the resource planning. They will do the test environment planning. Are they going to use Linux operating system? Are they going to use Windows operating system? Which browsers are they going to use? Firefox or Safari? Which browser are they going to use to test? And they come up with the estimation, right? Like how long this testing will take. Is it going to finish in this sprint? Is it going to take 3 sprints, 4 sprints? They're going to do all these planning during this test plan phase. And last but not least, also they plan the deliverables. After the test is done, what are the things that they're going to give to the stakeholders, to the product manager? What are the documents that they're going to be handing out? These are all test plan process.
Okay, that's a good answer. Diels, could you clarify what HTTP requests and HTTP protocols are? What's that?
Yeah. So HTTP protocols. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So it's a communication protocol used on www, World Wide Web. It's basically rules that are used over the internet. All the websites, the servers, they need to follow this protocol if they want to be over the internet. And HTTP requests are messages that are sent by clients to the servers using different methods. For example, get method to retrieve a data. For example, put method to create something. For example, delete method to delete something. There are several methods that are used to operate various operations on the servers. Yeah.
Yes, okay. Then tell me about SDLC and STLC.
Okay, yeah. So SDLC and STLC, these are two major important methodologies in software development. So SDLC stands for Software Development Lifecycle, whereas STLC stands for Software Testing Lifecycle. And the Software Development Lifecycle has several phases. It starts with planning, requirement analysis. There is design phase where UI UX designers design the software. There is development phase where developers write the internal logic of the software. They write the code, the actual code. There's a testing phase where testers, us, come into the scene and test the software. And then there is the production phase where they release the software for the user experience. And then the last phase is maintenance, and it's a continuous process. STLC is actually within this SDLC process. It's inside this SDLC lifecycle, software development lifecycle. It's in the testing phase. Specifically, it's in the testing phase. It has its own phases, like like I said, creating a test plan, preparing a test plan, and then writing the test cases, and then deciding the testing environment, and then test execution. After the test execution, checking the reports if there is any bugs, any defects, sending the reports to the developers, and then retesting if everything is working fine. And the last one, if everything is working correctly, the last phase would be test closure. So STLC is within STLC.
That's good. Very good. What is the purpose of the implicit await common in Selenium?
Okay, so implicit wait is a command in Selenium, which is used for a web driver to wait for some time until the web element is found. So we declare it globally, which means we're going to declare it once in the beginning of the class, and it's going to be applicable for the whole class and for all elements that are in the class. So let's say we have a web element, let's say an empty field, and we want to click to it. So we declare this timeout. We call it timeout implicit wait. We declare it once, and we give it to a certain seconds. Usually it's used 10 seconds. So when the web element is found, the click is done. If the web element is not found and the time is up, 10 seconds is over, WebDriver will throw the element is not found exception.
Okay. Yes. What are your thoughts on behavior-driven development, BDD?
Yes.
What are the benefits, you can say?
Okay, what are the benefits? So BDD is one of the very, very important methodologies also in testing. It stands for, like you said, behavior-driven development. It's mainly focuses on the behavior of the software, actually. And one of the core important aspects of BDD is communication. Actually, I think it's built for communication because back then there was a problem between developers, testers, and stakeholders. Stakeholders, the clients, they don't understand developers, what they write, the code itself. They don't understand what they're doing. Even testers, we don't understand the code that the developers write. So I think that's how the BDD is, actually come into the scene. So in BDD, there is a special language used. We call it Gherkin language. It's a very basic, easy English language with some important keywords like when, then, and, given, some keywords which make it even easier to understand. So we write our test cases using this Gherkin language, using the BDD methodology. And once the test cases are written, we also implement those test cases. We write code for it. So they're like connected, they're like glued to each other. So whenever we want to show our test cases, like look at our test cases, developers can understand what we're doing. And even stakeholders can understand what we're doing because we have the written format, written in a very easy English language. And then we have the code that's glued to it. That's the description actually to it. That's why I really love BDD. It's easy to understand for everyone.
Yes, that's good. How are bug reports prepared and documented? Yeah,
bug reports are very important because it needs to be well written so that developers can understand what the issue is. Even the stakeholders, the clients can understand what the issue is. So it depends on the company. If the company is using a test management tool like, let's say, Zephyr or Jira, the bug report is written there. If they're not using any test management tool, it can be written on the Excel sheet, right? But there's an important point that the tester needs to adhere. There needs to be a title, the summary, first of all. The title needs to explain, actually define what the problem is. When the developer look at the title, the developer should understand what the problem really is, identify the problem. And then there needs to be an explanation, a detailed explanation, even the steps to reproduce that certain bug. There needs to be steps to reproduce that certain bug. And then there needs to be the actual result and expected result so that the developer can understand the difference, what's wrong, what's going on there. There can be some attachments like the screenshots of the bug, or if there is a video recorded of the bug, or log files, or maybe other files that are, that will help developers to understand the bug better. Then there needs to be the testing environment, the explanation of the testing environment, when the tester find this, where the tester find this bug, on which operating system, on which browser. Also, there needs to be the date, the time. There needs to be the assignee, the reporter. Let's say I am the reporter who I assign this bug report to. There needs to be a detailed explanation of also that, and also status of the bug report, like if it's open, if it's in progress, if it's fixed, if it's retested, if it's closed, already done, finished, everything is okay. There needs to be also status in this whole bug report.
Okay. Now we can talk about backend tests, right?
Yeah.
What are the parameters in API? API.
Okay, in API, there are several parameters, but there are two main parameters that I also worked on while doing API testing. The first one is path parameter. As the name suggests, it actually tells us more about the path. Actually, parameters are used to help us to narrow down the search. They're like search filters. When we're using search filters, what do? We make our life easier, our job easier. We want to find the correct, answer immediately. So we use path parameters to make our search, to narrow our search. They are separated with slashes. And also the other one is query parameter. Query parameter is also starts. They are all inside the endpoints. While we're writing the endpoints, we can see the path parameters and query parameters. Query parameter starts with question mark, and there might be different strings, and all the strings are separated with ands and symbol. And like I said, these parameters help us to narrow down our search.
Okay. How do you approach API testing in your work?
Okay, so I can give you from a project that I worked on. So there was this project that we were doing, HRMS project. It was basically human management system that we were testing. And when we were doing an API testing, first of all, we tested manually to see if all the endpoints are working. First of all, we look at the documentation, right? For all the APIs, all the API testing, there needs to be a documentation. Most of the companies use Swagger documentation, but some companies use their own documentations. So first of all, a tester needs to check all the documents to understand everything better, to understand all the endpoints, all the methods that are going to be used. And then, personally, we used Postman for manual testing of APIs. There, we hit the endpoints one by one, just one example we did from each one. After that, to automate this testing, we used our Cucumber framework, and then we added the rest assured dependency into our POM, and we used different datas, several datas actually, and we hit all the endpoints again and again for these datas. This is how we did API, and of course, after we did the API testing, we did verification using JSON objects. We did verification if the status codes are correct, if the request body consists of the information that we wanted, if they are correct. We did all the verification at the end.
You say JSON. What is the JSON?
Yeah, I said JSON. Okay, so JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's basically a test-based file written in JavaScript. So we use JSON in API testing, especially while using Postman, we use JSON. And JSON is just like map. It stores data in key and value pairs.
Yeah.
And it's basically used to store and transfer data. And it's quite fast while parsing. It's quite fast. Yeah, these are the things I know about JSON.
Okay, what is an XML and where do you use an XML in your project?
Okay, so we didn't use XML in our project, first of all. We just used JSON with API
No
testing.
problem.
As far as I know, if I'm wrong, you can correct me. XML is mostly used with SOAP API, SOAP UI, SOAP testing. But we tested REST API, so we didn't use XML. We used JSON. Maybe XML is used. I don't know. Actually, we use JSON. So XML, as far as I know, it's also it's a format. It's not a programming language. It's not like Java, JavaScript. It's a format. It's a text-based file format. It's just like JSON. It stores data and it transfers data. But as far as I know, it's not faster than JSON. JSON is faster than XML. XML is slower while parsing the data. And also, XML uses tags, while JSON doesn't use tags. JSON is easier to understand. XML uses tags, but it's not like HTML. HTML has predefined tags, right? Like header, But XML doesn't have predefined tags. You can define your own tags while writing an XML. That's what I know until now.
Yes, that's true. And is the plus, we can use the parallel tests in XML.
Oh, okay.
What are your soft skills?
All right, my soft skills.
And how you have deployed and how do you apply them in your project?
Yeah,
Tell me.
sure. Yeah. First of all, when we started the boot camp, our instructors told us a QA engineer must have these qualities. First of all, problem solving, being detail oriented. And I was like, I have all these qualities because I'm a mother of two sons. So a mother is problem solving, always detail oriented. That's why I can use all my soft skills that comes from being a mother. I can use in software testing, QA automation testing. Yeah. So yeah, one of the soft skills that I have is actually hardworking and always keeping up to date. Like, because technology is a non-stop process. Learning is a non-stop process, and technologies keep changing every day. New tools are coming every day. So as a QA automation engineer, my first aim is to keep my knowledge up to date. Because today our company may use, well, let's say Selenium WebDriver, but tomorrow there might be another tool that will be amazing for the software testing, and our company may move on to that tool. So that's why, as a software tester, I think we need to be like hardworking and willing to learn and willing to develop ourselves. Another thing is I love to work in teams. Cross-functionally, I love to work with people. For me, the core aspect of being a software tester is communication, because software testers, they always work in a team. Most of the time, at least two people, there will be two people in our team. Or as a Scrum team, there are lots of other people in the Scrum team. So communication, understanding each other. When you face a problem, telling people about your problem, asking for help, these are very, very important things for me. That's why communication is very, very important. But I also love working individually by myself. I'm a very motivated person,
I can see
if
that.
I can do something for my company, if I can achieve something, if I can be an asset for the company, I'm going to be so motivated, and I'm going to be working so hard the next day. I think these are the qualities that I have. Yeah.
Your answer is very impressive.
Thank you so much.
Do you have any question for me?
Yeah, actually, I do. So I was thinking, once an employee let's say I started working with you, do you provide any trainings in the beginning of the process, the job process?
I think, of course, you will have unlimited membership rights on various platforms, and you will be given time and opportunity to learn them if you can accept it by me.
Okay, great. And what tools do you use in your company? What QA tools do you use in your company?
Yeah. For QA automation, we use Selenium, Cucumber, Git, Java as language. We use these tools in UI tests. In backend tests, API, SQL, Postman is used. If you are accepted, you will be responsible for these tools.
I see. These are the tools that I know. I'm so glad to know that you use these. And last but not least, for the professional growth and development, are there any available opportunities for the QA automation testers in your company? Any opportunities for professional growth?
Of course, it can vary from one company to another, but we can provide you with some common opportunities, trainings and workshops and certifications, mentorship and coaching like this.
Yeah.
That's all right.
These are great. These are great. Thank you very much. I'm so glad to know you. Thank you for your time.
Coming to the interview. You will be in touch shortly.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Goodbye.